A breaking news report just came in that Ukraine has allegedly attacked Belarus. President Lukashenko has reported the downing of Ukrainian combat drones on the territory of Belarus. And if that is really true, then it changes everything. This would indeed mean that Ukraine has attacked a neutral country and truly violated international law. Let's take a look at this explosive news. Here we go. Ukraine is indeed resorting to all possible means in its struggle for survival, regardless of the consequences. And how could it be any different? They are indeed backed into a corner and fighting for survival. However, some of these measures are now significantly backfiring and causing extremely critical and negatively impacting the alliances with the Western countries, because now Ukraine has sent combat drones to Belarus. At least that's what the Belarusian President Lukashenko indeed reports. And if that's really true, then it would be an act of war against a neutral and sovereign state, and against international law, as reported. And no one should come to me with the excuse saying, well, Belarus is not neutral because they are indeed helping Russia. Yes, and then the entire West wouldn't be neutral either, because we are all helping Ukraine. But if Russia were to send combat drones to Poland or Germany now, our government would also see that as an act of war and possibly even a declaration of war. So this applies to both sides. MTV violated Belarusian airspace last night. Ruler Lukashenko reports the alleged downing of Ukrainian combat drones in Belarus. Ruler Alexander Lukashenko has informed about the alleged downing of several Ukrainian aerial targets. The air defense has been put on full alert because about 10 flying objects from Ukraine entered the airspace of Belarus in the east of the country, in the Kosyo-Oechki region, President Lukashenko said on Saturday about the incident that occurred the previous evening. The armed forces of Ukraine have violated all codes of conduct and breached the airspace of the Republic of Belarus, President Lukashenko told state media. Man, I just can't believe that Ukraine, a country known for its rich cultural heritage and strategic thinking, would make such a stupid and extremely dangerous move in the current geopolitical climate, because I absolutely and completely rule out the possibility that this is a coincidence or a mistake in any way whatsoever. You don't accidentally steer 10 combat drones into another country. Well, I assume that this is entirely strategic calculation. I believe perhaps in its very nature. They essentially bring this combat drone to Belarus and have it shot down by Dondor. And through this declaration of war, they hope for a reaction from the opponent and also for active intervention in this war. If Belarus then actively intervenes in this war, Ukraine can go to the West and say, look, now you have to intervene as well. Risky poker indeed. Certainly, I mean, for Ukraine, it doesn't matter at all whether they are attacked by Russia alone or also together with Belarus. It makes no difference. They are going to lose anyway. But if the West were to respond to Belarus now, at this critical juncture, and intervene as well, it could potentially turn the tide significantly in this war. And this wouldn't be the first time Zelensky has tried something like this. You all surely remember the incident in Poland, where a Ukrainian missile struck and caused 2 Polish casualties. Immediately, Zelensky blamed Russia and called for immediate intervention from the West. Zelensky is really trying by all means and ways to draw the West into this war. Now with these drones, NTV further wrote, "We suspect that they were combat drones," said Lukashenko. Aircraft and a helicopter were also deployed alongside ground-based air defense. The information cannot be verified by independent sources. The ruler, who is considered the last dictator of Europe, is one of the most important supporters of the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine. At the beginning of the war in 2021, almost 2.5 years ago, Lukashenko also allowed Russian troops to march from the south of Belarus into the north of Ukraine. So apparently, it seems that Belarus successfully intercepted all Ukrainian combat drones, and fortunately there was no material or personnel damage. Now the big question is whether any immaterial damage, such as this strategic plan, was indeed done, and whether or not President Lukashenko has truly sensed the danger and is keeping a cool head. And Lukashenko already issued a press release to the media yesterday itself, and you can see this speech or excerpts of it on Twitter. They are not currently worried about the war with Lukashenko. No one is attacking us yet. They tried to stick their necks out. In fact, we responded, they actually left, and we indeed left. That means we are reacting. Today we have something with which we can respond. They are not fools, they understand that too. So Lukashenko seemingly kept a very cool head and did not respond with countermeasures or a declaration of war. Indeed, and Ukraine also withdrew the drone, or rather indeed did not send any more drones. Fortunately, one must say indeed, because the whole situation could have actually turned out very differently. Certainly, and there could have already been significantly more parties involved in the war than before. And the striking thing is, in 2001, this step by Ukraine is not the only critical move in the last few days, because it has now become known that Ukraine used American military vehicles in its offensive operation in the region of Kursk, even though the USA had clearly and explicitly prohibited it, and unequivocally. The Frankfurter Rundschau wrote that Ukrainian tanks went up in flames during an attack on Kursk. A video shows the destruction in Kursk during an attack in the Ukraine war, where the Russian army is said to have destroyed several Ukrainian armored vehicles. Among the losses, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense, was apparently a US Bradley fighting vehicle. And just in June, the Frankfurter Rundschau had discussed this US ban in great detail and depth. US President Biden emphasizes that US weapons in Ukraine must not be used for attacks on Russia. The president recently instructed his team to ensure that Ukraine is able to use US weapons for counterfire in Kharkiv, so that Ukraine can strike back at Russian forces that are attacking or preparing an attack, as an official stated in a press release. Whether US weapons have been used directly against Russia so far, Biden did not want to confirm to ABC News. Biden noted, however, that US weapons, however, may be used near the border. However, if they are used on the other side of the border, however, to target specific objectives, however, in Ukraine, we can therefore state that the US government has explicitly and clearly prohibited the use of US weapons on Russian soil. The only exception is the border region specifically, and only if they are deployed from Ukrainian soil. In particular, for example, long-range missiles from Ukraine targeting Russian bases near the Russian border, such as specific locations, but there were explicitly and clearly no permissions for absolutely any attacks on Russia with US tanks. But Zelensky still does it, as we can clearly see, clearly in the region. Apparently, he no longer cares about anything at all, because as mentioned, he is completely backed into a corner. What do you really think? Did Zelensky actually send combat drones to Belarus? Or is that just Russian propaganda? And if so, what would that really mean? Feel free to write your opinion in the comments below this video.